Real quick, before we get started, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Greenlight.ai. We all know how important compliance is, and Greenlight.ai is the leader for compliance and EOR services, especially for talent platforms. You're going to hear about them later, but thank you to Greenlight. All right, man. Well, listen, for you listeners out there, I saw Brad about a year ago, and I was like, this dude is on fire. Let's see if he stays. And then that turned into 6 months ago, and I'm like, holy shit, he's still rolling. And so every like comment and like thing, I'm like, holy shit, who's this guy, Brad? Who's this guy, Brad? So we finally connected with Brad 3 months ago, was it? Did we
I think so,
finally?
yeah.
Yeah, and I started off with me just flirting and being like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" So I think like first, Brad, it's an honor to introduce you to our listeners, have our listeners meet you. How would you describe yourself and what you're building?
Yeah, thank you. And what we're building is hyper specific to the experiential marketing and event marketing industry, which is where I've been my whole career. And at this point, it's a platform that automates a lot of the upfront work that we do in the planning phase with events, and then it ties it directly into a network of freelancers and experts so that you can execute and operate on your project seamlessly. So, kind of the future of where I see things heading in terms of individuals being these nodes that you can tap into to scale up.
I love it. And let's start by diving into like when you say experiential marketing, what does that mean? And I think we all know, especially listeners to the show. I mean, a lot of us have lived on planes previously. A lot of us, our plane life is picking back up. Come September, October, November, we're going to be in Dallas, Singapore, DC, Boston, right? Like we're familiar with the idea of events, and we've all been to these conferences. We know they're big and they're loud and they're expensive and yada yada yada. You're actually the expert at what's happening behind the scenes, I assume, and actually how to get an ROI out of this, right? And one thing I will add for you listeners is we are seeing events as a top three revenue driver. So, it used to be outbound and SEO, then it turned into a little more outbound, a little more SEO, and yeah. Events seems like something every single sales team and marketing team needs to be investing in, not just your PR team. But so, Brad, how would you describe like what is the experiential marketing space?
Yeah, I think a good place to start is to break down kind of the different sectors of events almost. So a lot of what a lot of what we experience in the business world, like B2B stuff, is conferences and trade shows. And those serve their purpose, and we've all been to them where there's a keynote stage presentation and maybe there's a lobby that you walked into that had a bunch of vendors set up, or the big trade shows where it's just vendors everywhere. And that's a very particular type of event. Sometimes those can straddle the world of experiential. I would say once you get into true experiential, you're talking about like Pinterest doing a pop up experience at Coachella on the festival grounds, or you're talking about um, Lululemon takeover pop up shop in the middle of New York City, and they're distributing an exclusive drop of clothing. But it can really range all aspects. It's always rooted in marketing, and it's kind of like meant to draw attention. It's got like a PR stunt kind of flavor to it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of sits in this world of like it can be B2B, but a lot of times it's B2C, and like the really fun, cool, wild ones that we see are often B2C, like mobile tours or just like Spotify pop up in the middle of Brooklyn and they got a bunch of like cool artists to come, or they often ride the coattails of like South by Southwest or Art Basel or New York Fashion Week or Lollapalooza. So that's where we see a lot of experiential like events kind of show up.
Can I bring up one of the ones that to me was the most hype with little actual like bang was as you mentioned South by. I think it was either like the government of Dubai or like there was this big exhibit that was like, look, like step into Dubai. I'm pretty sure it's Dubai. if it's not Dubai, to the whole government of Dubai, I apologize for singling you out. But so the line was massive, right? It was like all the way around the building. So we had the speaker passes, so we were able to cut the line, and we walk in, and I don't know, it's like this light show, I guess, in the middle, and we're like, okay, is this the lobby? Is this the actual event? Like we're expecting something big, and then we walk in the back, and they're like, here it is, Dubai chocolate, and we're like, we waited in line all that long for a Dubai chocolate piece. What the fuck? But the whatever they did, like on the marketing and stuff, phenomenal. Boy, did they build that line. But what would be some of the like really good examples for like the idiot like me who doesn't understand the space but wants to seem impressive to say like, oh yeah, that experience was whatever. The only one that jumps out to me is when Salesforce rented out every taxi in Paris to basically say like hardware is dead, embrace the cloud. But what are some like industry examples of? And remember when Apple threw the well, that's a commercial, so never mind, fuck that. But what are some big examples that you guys always turn to be like, oh, we have to be like X?
Yeah, I mean they vary depending on like the brand or the client. I think the fashion world does a really good job of like kind of wild, crazy um, experiences where you'll see a fashion show in the middle of the desert, like at the base of the pyramids or something like that. Like they go wild with that, or like a huge inflatable. I remember, I think it was IKEA, but I think also Coach has done something where it's like they'll drop just a massive inflatable Coach purse in the middle of Paris during Paris Fashion Week or whatever. Um, so fashion usually does a great job of like kind of the PR stunty stuff, or like those like kind of luxury fashion brands. And then you can shift all the way into like automotive. So I'm sure we've all been to a music festival where you walk in and there's like a Toyota parked, and then they're giving out, whatever, in the middle of the festival. And like that's experiential marketing as well. All the way down to like Diageo or Bud Light or, name your alcohol brand that's doing sampling at an event, at a baseball stadium or something like that. So like it can go all the way down to like sampling and big scale, or it can be just one off crazy. Like Comic Con just happened and a bunch of brands went there. And I know I was looking at one case study this morning where I don't even remember the brand, unfortunately, but they brought in a barge and they parked it in the harbor and built out a whole experience on top of the barge. Which from like my background as a production person, I'm just like nerding out over like how would I have built on top of a floating barge, and then gotten the guests on there safely to go through this whole experience, and let alone like parking vendors at the docks and like load in and set up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, long story short, there's like so many examples that happen all the time. I wouldn't say there's one kind of pinnacle thing. It really depends on like where the brand's at and what they're looking to do and kind of like the ROI they're looking for. And then it's our job as kind of agency people or industry experts to help guide them to show up at the right places, like in the right way.
So the next question for you is going to be like, how do you identify slash how do you know who's the best experiential talent? Because the way you're talking about it, to me, it sounds like the best party planner ever, but just at massive scale. And also, I know that someone like me never wants to plan a party, just wants to show up and eat the food. And so it's such an impressive skill set that like I don't get. And oh my God, I can't wait to hear like how your brain thinks and what people like you how to find them. I have one funny question before. We've never done this in the show. I'm going to call this our conspiracy corner. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Coldplay concert was a psyop from that company? Because boy, was that good marketing. That was the best experiential marketing campaign we've ever seen, probably.
Great marketing. Yeah. I don't I don't think it was just based off of their reactions. But if it was, yeah, that marketing person, deserves all the bonuses. It's true. Nobody heard about those companies until that time. So,
Like the
but yeah,
memes
that's got
behind it.
that would have a little edge of kind of PR stunt slash experiential, to it if you were to frame it up that way.
like if we were to conspiracy corner this, right? Like you would have to have the board would have to have said we're going to fire the CEO, but instead let's sacrificial lamb him and make this a massive marketing event. And like
Yeah.
if that were the case, genius,
Yeah.
genius, best marketing for them
Totally.
ever, right? And then we're just going to
Totally.
also take the head of HR down as well. We don't want both of them.
Yeah.
But genius. But man, let's get into because I think this is one of the most impressive things I've seen about you and just like totally creeping on you, to be honest, for a year now is you really deeply understand like your audience. And it seems like what makes a good experiential marketing project campaign tick. And so what would you say, like what makes the best experiential marketing team and individual? Like, did they spend 5 years in Miami just partying? Like, do they come from the same ad agency? Like, what really makes good experiential marketing talent, would you say?
Yeah, it's a great question because back to the point of like there's different kind of subcategories within events. So you've got your conference and trade show people, and that's a very particular set of skills. Like they're often in big convention centers working with union labor, and the logistics of the whole thing are completely different. And it tends to be like you're working within the confines of the box of the convention hall or whatever that might be. And then kind of on the other side of the spectrum, you've got your like nightclub party promoter types. And then you've got like your wedding planners. You've got people throwing celebrity birthday parties, which when I first moved out to LA, so I started with Live Nation in Chicago. So my roots are in concert production. Then I moved out to LA and linked up with an agency out there. And our early days, we were doing a lot of celebrity parties and red carpet stuff. And that's a very particular type of event planner as well. Like if you ask me to plan your wedding, I would respectfully say there's absolutely no way I'm planning a wedding. But, then I have no issue being the executive producer on a $20 million, huge tech company experience or whatever. It's just a different type of planning. We call on a lot of the same vendors, but I think kind of in the world that we sit in, it's got the advertising and marketing edge to it. So we see a lot of professionals that come out of that world. And then you've got like your true production people that often come from like touring concerts. Maybe they were doing kind of wedding planning stuff. Maybe they were doing conferences, and they're slowly kind of branching into this like event marketing like world. Um, but it does get brought up a lot, and people ask me often, what's like what's a feeder program for our industry? Because there's no degree for this. Um, and it's something I think about a lot and might try and tackle next year. Of just like, where are these people coming from? Where's the new talent going to come from? How are they learning? How are they getting mentored? All that kind of stuff.
Well, let me ask you from a buyer's perspective, who's the buyer? Is it the CMO, the CRO? Is it totally separate? Is it in PR? Is the answer all over the place? Like who's the typical buyer here?
For my platform or for who's spending money on events?
I think let's go specific into your platform because that'll also give us a sort of tide of like our listeners are on the intersection of talent and technology. So
Hmm.
it's a really weird thing where a lot of our listeners they actually might be sitting in HR procurement and they're trying to say how do I best serve my organization. They also might be sitting with the P&L and saying how do I drive my product marketing innovation goals. But they're also looking to like what are these things that I currently don't have that I should, and flexible talent enables me to have them cheaper, more accurately than if I were to have to go to an ad agency, right? And
Hmm.
so that's like little context of when I say buyers, like who is usually let's get actually very direct. Who's usually using your platform right now, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, so there's kind of two sides to our platform, and it's tricky because it's not really a marketplace necessarily, but I think your listeners would probably follow in where the industry is heading, where you've got to have the tech element tied into a network of talent and experts that you can tap. So like on the surface level, sure, it might almost appear as a marketplace, but it's also kind of a vertical SaaS tool because it's helping you accomplish scale or figure out direction faster. And then the talent aspect is just there if you need it in order to kind of like staff up and scale. Um, what's really standard in our world is you've got an agency. So one of my main buyers is going to be an agency. So like an experiential marketing agency or an event production agency. And they are going through growth and needing to scale up using freelancers because we're so project based in our industry that a lot of times you can't hire 20 people and cover the overhead because the projects are kind of unpredictable. So you go through kind of this stair step growth where you need network of freelancers that are kind of vetted, ready to go, and awesome to fulfill new projects that come in so that you can get the revenue churning so that you can slowly kind of backfill your full-time people. And so what we see a lot of times is these agencies will sit on an Excel sheet of 50 or 100 freelancers that they've worked with in the past. And those Excel sheets are usually really outdated. Nobody knows the rates of the talent, where they're currently living, recent projects, like none of that information. So then a project comes through the pipeline, everybody panics and they're like, who should we use for this? Like we need 5 freelancers, and everybody just kind of like texts their friends or they turn to an Excel sheet and try and figure out somebody they've worked with in the past. So we built out a whole element of, we call it roster, but basically it gives the company the ability to send out invites that are kind of white labeled to their agency to that list of people. And then those people fill out a quick profile to join their roster, and it takes like 2 minutes. But now all of a sudden, all the information is updated. So they know where they're living, their availability, their rates, what they've specialized in, their recent projects, all that kind of stuff. And then we automate um, messaging to them. You can set it up once a month, once a quarter to say, please keep your profile updated. Like we're actively hiring, all that kind of stuff. And then we even have a little community element where like you could have all your freelancers in one place and you're actively kind of like staying in communication with them. And for us, the way that we can help from the global network side is when their roster is not enough or a good fit, they can tap us as almost like a concierge, and we'll go hand select and invite people to bid on the project basically, and join the team. So that's kind of the functionality we're seeing there with the agencies. And then the other buyer is brands directly. So they might have a internal team of like 3 people that handle experiential and events. And the other side of our platform is a lot of like data and trends and competitor information. So we see that the brand teams are more interested in that kind of like industry trend reporting. So they're on there brainstorming, like, should we even show up at Coachella this year? Or is it a better fit for us to go to Paris Fashion Week? Or where should we be? How should we be there? And our tool kicks out a report for them that says, like, here's what all your competitors are doing. Here's roughly about how much it would cost for you to show up there and do this concept. And then also here's the freelance experts or agencies that you could call on to execute the project. So, um,
It's what I
yeah.
love. What I love in you have the combination right now of scrappiness in that. I mean, hell, you'll respond to every single LinkedIn post related to experiential marketing, just being like, "Hey, here," right? So, like, you have that scrappiness as that founder. You also, though, have the discipline to be like, "Whoa, I don't need to release this right now. Let's do what's best based off what's best for the customer." And so, when we first met, you were like, hey, we're not going live with this until next week, meaning like we're going to do this right. And that's a very interesting balance, especially if you look at, I mean, most tech solutions in general, right? Like we're told, shit, what is it? Don't ship, if you're not embarrassed, then you're too late, right? But at the same time, what we're seeing in this space is the best solutions. We call it B2F, like they or the they have the founder market fit, And what you do is exactly why, right? Because it's like, hey, we're not releasing till this week because we need to have the right protocols in place. This is not as simple as an open marketplace that everyone bids. Um, what do you see as like the next 5 years? And we seldom get to the 5 years this early in an episode, usually. But what do you see happening over the next 5 years in your space? Because there's so many things happening right now, right? Like we're seeing layoffs like crazy, people thinking that agents can do everything. We are seeing massive consolidation. Upwork just acquired Bubty and Ascend, day before recording this. Um, what do you think the next 5 years for your industry like? Does it look like no full-time employees, all full-time employees, all agents, all one platform? Like, how are you seeing this shape out?
Yeah, definitely. Um, there's a lot, there's a lot going on, and this is just from my perspective. And so obviously we've got thousands of freelancers in our network who I get information from and updates from, and then I'm actively demoing with like all the best agencies and brands every day. So I kind of get their perspective on things too. Um, I can tell you what's happening right now, and then kind of where we're trying to head to. Um, we're seeing in our industry the agencies that are sitting between about 25 people to 100 people, headcount wise, full time headcount, are really having a tough time. Um, the overhead is too high to to handle like the project workflow and like just kind of the ups and downs of that whole cycle. And it costs too much money to bid on all these jobs actively. So it's too expensive to kind of run in that zone right now. There's definitely teams doing it, but it's hard. So a lot of them are expanding into different services, maybe offering like content or digital or influencer or whatever. But I think in experiential specific, we're going to see um, agencies who are at like 20 people and less kind of sit as that like boutique firm, but they offer just really great creative services and they can move really fast and they just come up with like wild ideas and they scale up with freelancers depending on whatever the project load is. And then you've got your big incumbents like Omnicom and Momentum. They're going through a merger and everything right now. So like there's the big kind of holding company ones that have, they're on an AOR with Nike or Verizon for 5 years or 10 years. Like they're doing their thing. That'll always serve its purpose. So when we look at that kind of middle ground and losing that, that means that a lot of talent that sits in the kind of mid to high tier is getting laid off, or they are not getting the salaries that they probably deserve. So they're jumping and they're going freelance. And so a lot of them are looking at it. And if you're a creative director, you're like, I could work for myself and have no real ceiling on my income. And I'm not going to be with this agency that's telling me what to do and kind of overworking me because they're underwater. So a lot of the talent is jumping out to freelance. Um, so that's a shift that's happening. And then the other shift that happens with that, which is kind of unfortunate, is like for me and a lot of people who came up 5, 10, 15 years ago, you would go to an agency because you would get the mentorship and like the exposure to senior level people. And so now that like that level of talent has been like kind of scraped out and is going freelance, the younger talent is kind of coming to market and they're like, where do I go? Like, I just want to find, I'm too early to go freelance. I just want to find somewhere where I can land, do a lot of projects and learn from really good people. And like the boutique shops, they're like, hey, we're not hiring. Like we run with 8 people and that's all we're doing. So they don't have a great place to land right now, which is unfortunate. Um, so that's kind of like industry perspective. And then for us specifically, because I see that there's going to be so many more freelancers on the market and then kind of servicing the boutique agencies, but also brands directly. Some people are saying like I'm building potentially an agency killer because brands could come to me, plan and ideate with all of our data and all of our trends, and then get connected to the experts that can do the work and execute for them. I think agencies still serve a really good purpose and can put out some amazing creative ideas and concepts that I'll never compete with and I don't want to compete with. So it's kind of an interesting ground. I see us getting to a place where the platform can really act as your 24/7 producer. Like it'll know where you should go, how much it's going to cost to be there, the vendors you should call on, the freelancers you should use. It'll kick out a budget for you, a work back schedule. It'll really be like a fully AI automated producer that you can work with, and we'll probably get to that point within the next year or two, even to the point where it's going to send out emails to coordinate with all your vendors. It's going to handle a lot of that for you. So
Hey everyone, real quick, I want to talk about the risk that is involved with an independent workforce. No matter where you are, whether it's the US, whether it's Brazil, whether it's the EU, whether it's London, there is risk in how you classify and how you work with individuals. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just paying someone. The classification, the actual collaboration, the contracts, the payments, everything is intertwined and must be connected in a way that doesn't get you in trouble with the tax authorities, regulatory authorities, and even potentially class action lawsuits. There are numerous examples of this. Just search classification lawsuit on wherever you want to use, and you'll get plenty. Which is why today's sponsor, Greenlight.ai, is the modern EOR, modern compliance solution for the modern workforce. There's 4 things that we want to call out when hiring an independent worker that you need. And that is you need to onboard, you need to classify, you need to send payments, and you need to manage this global workforce. It's more than just one person, and Greenlight has all of that covered. All right, I want you to head over to greenlight.ai and tell them Human Cloud sent you. What is the comparable right now if they're not using you? Is it just spreadsheets? Is there an ERP system? Is it a mishmash of CRMs mixed with other things? What
yeah,
Yeah, if not you, what's getting used right now?
it's a. I think what's been the most eye-opening doing all these demos is that everybody has the same problems and nobody has a great solution. Like everybody's a mess under the surface when it comes to the agencies. Um, some of them are playing around with massive ERP systems like NetSuite, and it's too much for them. Like it just does too much for everybody, so it does nothing for them. Some of them have kind of built custom stuff. A lot of them just work in Google Sheets, um, and Google Drive, and that's kind of how they run stuff. Um, so we really sit in the pitch to production phase. So like, there's sales, and then it would come into our world of like we've got to ideate and figure out what we're going to do. We've got to find the team to work with, and then we would actually push into project management. So I'm like very intentional about not getting into project management because it's a black hole and everybody does it
Yep.
differently. My job is to get you from 0 to 1 in 50% of the time,
Yeah.
and get you kicked off.
What from a budgeting perspective on the buyer side? So one aspect that we're seeing, as I mentioned, is we have, I'm going to say budgets, but also executives that are looking at events from an ROI lens and saying, "Ooh, this actually might have a better ROI than what I've been putting into outbound, than what I've been putting into SEO." And so we're seeing some budget shifts there. But one of the challenges is that when they try to ask, okay, what's the minimum required investment to actually see a return? Things are all over the place. And we're all
Yeah.
getting pitched every day. We're getting new emails being like, hey, Brad, we see that you do this, and we are event experts, and we'll tell you, right? So the level of knowledge is just more confusing than ever. And you could ask one person and they would say, "Oh, we'll do this for $500." Then you ask another and they say 500K. And this is where I love you as a founder. You're going to shoot it to me straight, right? And so, like, what would you say is like the minimum viable investment requirement to put on a good event?
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's like attaching ROI to events, I think, is one of the most challenging things for everybody. And I've worked with like the best agencies out there, and nobody has good answers. So at a certain point, as a brand, you have to just chalk up the fact that this is like we've graduated onto a brand play versus ROI and measure the shit out of everything. And I think we're oftentimes we see like friction is when it's a brand who's maybe been crushing it with like digital paid ads where you can literally see clicks and like you can see the data on how far your dollar is going. And typically those teams are driven, like the CFO is driving the train. Where we really start to shine is when you get like the CMO at I don't know, Adidas, who's like, we're gonna just show up at South by Southwest because it's a great culture moment, and we want a lot of people to just come through and like experience our brand and what we have going on. And we're not going to be able to measure it. And if we measure it too much, people will smell it, and it'll come across fake. We got to just let it happen. And yeah, the conversation shifts a bit into just like brand marketing and like building kind of consumer relationships, which is not like a dollar for dollar thing. So, and then in terms of cost, it's all over the place. So like if you want to just show up, build awesome pop-up experience, like you're for sure in the six-figure category. If you want to just do like a tasting cart and you got a cool little iced coffee canned brand and you want to show up somewhere, like you can do it for 10, 20 grand, like no problem. And I meet a lot of really cool brands that are doing awesome events, super scrappy for 2,500, or $5,000. But the world that we sit in and kind of the professionals that we have on the platform, they're the ones who are producing at like $250,000 or more per event, and really doing like the high level, big splashy stuff.
If I were to ask you, kind of in a quick way, hey, if I don't go with you, what's it going to cost, right? Like what, and is that even a metric, right? Because in most of the flexible talent world, that is a key significant driver. And I'll give you a quick example. So, like, if we were to say, flexible talent for consulting, it would be like, hey, that 12-month project, it can actually happen in 3 months at 1/10 the cost, but the day rate is actually going to be more. If we were to say flexible talent marketing, same thing. Hey, that is going to take you 3 months. It's now actually going to take you 3 days potentially, or 3 weeks. For your space, what does it kind of look like in terms of like the transformational benefits of using a platform like yours? How do you kind of measure that?
Yeah, I think so. For let's take brands for example, like what are the alternatives for them and kind of the system that happens right now. Let's say they do want to go to South by Southwest and they want to do a pop up experience. They're going to just Google experiential marketing agency. They're going to come across 5 or 10, and they're going to send out an RFP to those 5 or 10. And we've found from our interviews and our data, the average cost of an agency to respond to an RFP is $45,000. So that's internal time for the team and getting renderings made and all that stuff. One out of those 10 is going to win. So that's nine that didn't win, and nine times 45. And that's just for that one project. So then you scale that out over the whole industry, and there's just so much waste happening in that phase only. So my job is on the brand side, rather than having you send out 10 RFPs, let me help you connect to the two perfect agencies that specialize in South by Southwest. And they are the exact right fit for you, your brand, and that activation. And then on the agency side, let's systemize and automate and look at all your historical data and your research and everything that you have. And so that your team can come into our tool and two people can kick out a proposal response instead of 15 people. And then kind of the last element is the talent. So the freelancers. So because of our network, now you've got confidence on bidding on that job because you could call on Brian, who's worked South by Southwest 10 times with similar brands, and you can slot him right in and it's not going to be an issue. So we really look at like that kind of those pitch metrics for like efficiency versus leaning too much into the talent side of things. Because one, I just didn't want to position us as like a straight kind of gig talent platform. I
Yeah.
wanted to push forward into the workflow more.
No. So okay, I'm gonna throw a crazy statement at you and see your reaction. And I think because a lot of times, like being a founder in this space can be really tough because there's no one category that it fits. The sales pitch usually isn't that simple. It's getting easier now, right? Because you can say, "Hey, we're the best experiential marketing experience. We're the best experiential marketing buying." But so I think part of what every founder in the flexible talent world, part of me, I think what we're doing is we're actually selling trust. And I think if you look at that process of like sending RFPs, I look at that, I'm just like, that is so broken. Why did we do that in the first place? And it's like, well, the erosion of trust, it became so difficult to figure out who to trust that it was just easiest to go send 10 RFPs and one person will go over and above. Fucks over the other nine people that waste their time on something. So it's just a broken system. But in your case, I would say, hey, you are enabling trust in experiential marketing through quantifying merit, which happens through context. And so, which opens a big can of worms, right? Like, what's merit? Like, oh God. I would say it's really as simple as, can you trust that this person has done this before and has the proof to prove that they have? And that's what you're doing. You're saying, hey, screw the RFP process, go straight to the exact person who's done this before. And rather than wasting the time of 10 agencies, talk to that person directly. Maybe you don't like them, but then guess what? There's another person who's also done exactly what you're talking about. So I love that, man. I love what you're doing. I We can't wait to have you back on in 6 to 12 months and hear some big wins, some big stories, some big success stories. I know you already got them, and I also love how I just want to call out to you listeners, man, you didn't build this in the dark, but you were building this through actual customer validation. So it's not like you were like, look, I have this beautiful plan and this beautiful pitch deck, and now I'm going to go raise. How long have you done this, Brett? It's been a year that you've been actually doing this, just kind of quasi quietly.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years. And I will say, so like it all started with the freelancers, and that's like my real passion. So like even the name out of office and live out of office is the URL, but that's like speaking to the lifestyle of being a freelancer, working for yourself, and kind of like pursuing that lifestyle. So it started on LinkedIn. I had a wait list. I got 2,000 freelancers around the world to jump on the wait list, and then I interviewed 300 of them, and it was really exhausting. But I learned, like, I was a freelancer, so I had a good guess, but like it wasn't until I talked to them where I was like, okay, they're really frustrated with building a personal website. They don't want to learn Squarespace and all that kind of stuff, but they know they need to showcase their work. So how can I help them do that? They all wanted a vendor database, so best lighting, furniture, all that kind of around the globe. And then they wanted community and education and asking tax questions and that kind of stuff. So version one of the platform was just that, just for the freelancers, application only. And I knew if I could get that system churning, I could also tap into this like knowledge base of like true experts and pros. And then we worked our way backwards into enterprise once we kind of had that sorted out. So hopefully that gives like good context for anybody else who's looking at, maybe they're sitting on a network of talent and they're wondering how can I monetize this, or how can I turn it into something bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Brad, most important question, where can our listeners find you out of office? What links you want to make sure they know about?
Yeah, so as you said, LinkedIn is big for me. So Brad Jackson on LinkedIn, and I'm always posting new content there. I think that's the best way to kind of like shoot me a message or interact with my stuff. You can also jump on and join the platform from there. So whether you're a freelancer, a vendor, an agency, or a brand, we've got a link that kind of like segments you out to, whatever you're interested in checking out.
Actually, and I want to make one final call out for you listeners. When you connect with Brad on LinkedIn, so one of the things, Brad, that I'm like, I apologize for flirting too much, but like one of the things that you do that I would say is really really impressive is like it's very clear that you're actually adding value, but not in like, how do I say this? Not in like a selly way, like in a way that you genuinely do connect with those in your network. And we all know, the founders slash like thought leader warriors out there who like every post is scheduled, every post is just like kind of generic, but whatever. And I just want to call it, Brad. Like you've been crushing it on actually adding value. So please, for all you listeners out there, like even if you have nothing to do with experiential marketing, like go follow Brad and just like see how he's done it.
Thank you.
And I know I'm flaring too much, but like seriously, Brad, like we have a lot of people, friends, you name it, come to us being like, hey, I do want to build my presence, but like, I don't want to be like that person where it's like cringy and like self
Yeah.
emotional and it just screams like insecurity. And you're actually one of the profiles that I'm like, go follow Brad, like see how he does it, like see how he intermingles, like actually adding value with showing what the value is, with like promoting himself. Like, so special
Thank
call
you.
out for you, Brad, if you listen. Yeah, yeah, no, man,
I,
keep.
I will I will also say for anybody who's curious, like this platform would not exist without the time I've put into LinkedIn. So
Yep.
if you're on the fence of like, should I post more? Should I try and build an audience there? I'm here to tell you it's a slow burn, but it is absolutely so worth it. And when I started, I kind of committed to myself, like I'm gonna just try and post every day for 6 months. And it could be about a book I'm reading, a podcast I just listened to. Um, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So
I love it, man. All right, Brad, listen, we will see you in a couple months. We're going to hear your success stories. You're going to hop
thank
on
you.
hopefully in the next 12 months. But all you go reach out to Brad ASAP. Brad, thank you for hopping on, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.